through inhalation. When burned, it decomposes into other toxic compounds, including hydrogen chloride. But again, don't worry, y'all. I'm sure the pets and other animals dropping dead are due to climate change or racism. Or maybe the people are just making it up, like the folks dropping dead from cardiac arrest after the experimental COVID vaccine. Who can we even trust anymore, honestly? The people in East Palestine are pissed, and they ought to be.
They don't deserve to be nuked with toxic chemicals. This is crazy. There should be so much outrage everywhere about this. It's absurd, and it stinks out here. Like, man, people just don't deserve to get nuked with toxic chemicals just because railroad companies make an error by not checking their trains to make sure they're safe. They go off, they derail, and then, oh, the only way we can get business back for our $55 billion business is for us to blow it up and just ruin a whole city of like 3,000 people. If there's something we should do like a give, send, go, and get every house here of 2,000 houses, whatever it is, or for the whole city, like reverse osmosis water, so that the next generation of people don't grow legs out of their head.
Amen. This is an environmental disaster of epic proportions, but yet I have yet to see teen climate snob Greta Thunberg or Al Gore or John Kerry on the scene. Hell, where the heck is our freaking president on this, or our transportation secretary? These hacks want to ban gas stoves to save the environment, but when toxic chemicals explode, where are they? They are disingenuous and lazy at best. These people want answers, and they deserve answers. Didn't Congress just spend trillions on an infrastructure package? What an excellent use of resources, as we can see. You know, it really burns my ass, no pun intended, that we send billions and billions of dollars in resources over to Ukraine, and yet when a situation like this happens on our own soil, we barely get a peep out of our leaders, and that's a bipartisan disappointment, by the way. Prayers to the people of Ohio. You deserve better leadership than this, and at the very least, you deserve some answers and transparency. Chinese spy balloons, UFOs being shot down every other day, and now this explosion in East Palestine, Ohio. How did we get so lucky as to have this guy at the helm when it all goes down? Just blessed, I guess. Super freaking blessed.
Outkick 360 rolls on. My cousin and his friend, Chad, you met, Heath and Milton. They're here at 6th and Peabody, both lawyers.
Heath and Milton, by the way, sounds like a great comic book
Heath and
duo.
Milton?
Like Milton and Heath, Heath and Milton, when you say them together like that. Great dudes.
I introduced him to someone this weekend who shall remain nameless that thought I said his name was Heek. H-E-E-K.
Like Reek from
Right.
Game of Thrones.
But I went out and during the break, I said, look, there's a story about this lawyer that has burned through like $10 million by scamming banks to get loans, 97 different loans with the intent that it was going to do a third party. But what she did, her name is Sarah King. The story's at Outkick. David Hooks did with the story. She would take photos to appear like she was a high roller with, athletes, artists, whatever it might be. And there's a photo of her with Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, and Josh Allen at the match in Las Vegas from last year. And so that's where she would, produce all this. So it appears like she's balling. And in fact, she is, because she's getting all these loans and then spending it on, resorts at the Wynn in Vegas and much, much more. I mean, if you're going to do that, you might as well go big. Sarah King did that.
$10.2 million?
Yes. Blowing through it. It's gone.
It reminds me of when Harry and Lloyd in Dumb and Dumber had all the money in the briefcase, and then they just provided the IOUs.
Yes.
Remember, they tried to hand, it's like, here's all the money. And I love when he says, that's $100K. You might want to hold on to that one. I feel like Sarah had to tell that to someone, like, no, I'm good for all of it. All this 10.2. Here's a $20,000 IOU. You're going to want to hold on to that one, and I'll get it back to you. That's an impressive feat.
And she's
for anyone
completely
to
broke,
accomplish.
other than scamming and blowing through the 10.2. And now she's being sued, of course.
We live in such a world now where you can, this is like the Great Gatsby of times, where you can create something on social media and get away with so much. You can fake people into believing you are whoever you want to present yourself to be on social media now more than ever. I feel like every time I go to Netflix, there's a new rip from the headlines movie or story about someone who scammed people into them believing that they're someone that they're not and made a ton of money off of it and probably ended up in jail.
Well, she's accused of taking 97 loans in a span of January of October of last year. Not like over a 5-year period, which I don't even think I could pull off. I don't know how you take out more than 2 or 3 loans if I wanted to go about trying to do that. Chad, if you want to, put your, refinance and put a mortgage on the house, second mortgage. Like I don't know how to take out 97 loans and get away with it.
Do banks not talk to each other? Unless you do all this in the same day, I can understand how you get away with it. But I feel like once you apply for a loan, there's a big red flag that goes up on the internet, and that all banks are alerted to you taking out a lot of money.
And it was all supposed to go
because you have to provide a lot of information to someone in order to get said loan. So how in the world are you taking out that many loans without anyone saying, hey, this might be a problem? That's the bank's fault. That's a banker's error. This is like monopoly, right? Banker's error in your favor.
You just show a photo.
And you just collect the money. Right.
Here I am with
with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
That's your collateral that you put down? No, I don't have a car or a home to put down or any rental properties. But did you see me with Tom Brady last spring? Here's that photo, so I'm good for it. People are dumb. People are real, real dumb.
Chad,
another example of that.
I didn't know what to expect on Friday night for Adam Sandler here in Nashville. You had a chance to see him, and I thought it was great. Clay agrees with us on this, but your assessment of Adam Sandler and the hour-and-a-half plus show that took place in front of a sold-out audience at an arena.
It was a big part of my adolescence that was on stage, first and foremost, from his They're All Gonna Laugh at You album to his time on SNL to all the silly comedies from Billy Madison to Happy Gilmore to The Wedding Singer to everything else. He's a big part of my comedic life. But I like you, had no clue what to expect from an Adam Sandler concert. I'm thinking, how are they going to divvy up stand-up versus songs versus
Special
opening
guest
act
versus
Yeah, Kevin James was a special guest for this.
Is it a typical show? I didn't know. A typical show where he's going to play stuff from the old album and then tie it in. I didn't know.
There was nothing from the old album.
Nothing old.
It was all new. He had new songs that were hilarious. They had different bits. I'm not going to give too much of it away for those that might go see. There's 20 shows he's playing, and I think pretty much all of them are sold out or close to it.
And they're filming for Netflix.
It was packed in Nashville on Friday night, and you had announcements everywhere. Do not put photography up because
video.
This is filming for a Netflix special. I don't know if they're going to do one of those things where they splice together
like his old
the
one.
best of different shows,
most
or if it's
recent
going to
one.
be one full show, like from Nashville on Friday. But I was very entertained. Yeah, we were there with Clay, and he absolutely loved it. There were a few things that had me just crying with laughter. But it's Sandler being Sandler. I mean, the dude is a perpetual teenager. And that's what's funny about it. What's funny to him is very consistent. He has a very tied through sense of humor through all of his movies and everything he creates. And either you get it or you don't. And if you get it, you're all in. And that stand-up special or the concert we saw Friday night was consistent with that. If you like Adam Sandler, you'll love this.
It's an escape, right?
Yeah.
And it's no different than, and he's 57 now. How old was he when he started in SNL? 20, 21, 20, something
Very
like
young.
He's not having to make fun of him. It's not like Louis C.K. back on tour having to make fun of himself for what happened, or Chris Rock having to now, he's got a whole stand-up on Will Smith. It's Sandler being exactly who he is and just repurposing the same ideas and still making it relevant to today.
Now, also, disclaimer, this is not a Nate Bargatze act. This is not family-friendly. Keep that in mind when you go to it. It's very, very blue.
But it's just like his old album.
Very, very funny.
Headlines next, including Marcellus Wiley, and he said something that the Wokes don't like.
Welcome into Outkick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
So the higher that number can be, the better you are with the committee. It's really that simple.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
He's got incredible taste in which media figures he listens to.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number one overall pick.
I have been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
Why are we going through Melania's goods? Don't make Brittany Griner out to be some type freedom fighter. Shouldn't there be a little bit of common sense? Let's roll them, big boy. What do you got?
They want to find someone to be the face of domestic terrorism, and they want it to be a right-wing Trump supporter. Don't let them entrap you into doing something dumb. But they were hyper-rational. They looked at the data, and they said it makes no sense for me to submit to this COVID shot mandate.
Get the shot or you can't go to your brother's wedding. Get the shot or you can't go to your daughter's graduation. Get the shot or else.
Just like that, the second hour is here. Outkick 360. Glad you're with us. Monday edition. The Packers could be done with Aaron Rodgers before he even decides what he wants to do off the darkness retreat. Again, we posed the question last week, what happens if he emerges from the cave or the tent or the yurt or anything? And he says, you know what? In this darkness, I saw the light, and I'm staying in Green Bay. But by the time he resurfaces, the Green Bay Packers have already moved on. That's according to Bob again. We'll get to that story and our thoughts on that coming up.
I was on with Dockage this morning. We got into a conversation about how long we could last in a darkness retreat.
Yeah.
And Dockage brought up the possibility if you had like booze in it, if they allow that, they will allow you. You get to stock it with what you want.
Yeah.
So if you had booze, and I'm thinking, I could extend my stay in this darkness retreat by 2 or 3 days if you allowed for the possibility of me just drinking myself to sleep. Right?
And you
can just go sleep for 12 hours and then wake back up, and I'm like, oh, I guess I'll give it a couple hours in this darkness and then start to sip on something else. I mean, you could really extend things out. I feel like that wouldn't be a possibility because I view this as solitary confinement, like Shawshank Redemption style. You're getting thrown in the hole for 2 days or the weekend
and
because you acted up in prison. This is a punishment you get for acting up in prison, and people are voluntarily doing this.
Sensory deprivation.
Think about that for a second. To see something, to see a vision.
Well, I mean, I think after that amount of time in darkness, you're going to see a lot of things because you've tricked your brain into hallucination.
So we had
right,
So Sunday school in church yesterday, we had this whole lesson about the Sabbath and what you're supposed to do with the Hebrew of Shabbat, which that is literally to stop. Right, that's the Hebrew word. One of the meanings is to stop. So the Sabbath, you stop everything is kind of the idea, your work and everything else. And in doing so, you might, hear from God or know what you need to do or get clarity in doing that. And the whole time, Hutton, I'm thinking about, well, this is what Aaron Rodgers is doing. He's just trying to get God to tell him what to do next, right? You're stopping everything. You don't experience anything. You don't see anything. So and in doing so, you'll get some sort of clear vision as to what to do next.
So you're saying,
but I could not stop thinking about that during Sunday school. I'm thinking, this is what Aaron Rodgers is sort of doing in doing this. This
don't
is
you
his
give
version.
him that idea. Don't you plant, he's the next Joseph Smith.
This is his version of the Sabbath. Yeah, oh man, can you imagine? If he comes out and he's like, guys, I don't know about my football future, but I now have a new religion for you.
But I did.
I really saw this, and now this is what you should do.
But I do have these tablets.
Yeah. He comes out. What if he writes like the
11th commandment,
the Scientology manual? What is it called?
He has the 11th commandment.
Yeah, like he's going to write that next. Anyway.
The Scientology manual.
What is the Scientology transcript called?
I don't know. Going Clear. So I don't know.
That's the documentary. It's called Dianetics or
that's it. That's
the Dianetics.
Yeah.
Is part of it. I don't want to give any, Scientology love here. I'm not going to say it's like Holy Scripture or anything. But it's called something.
It is a thing, though. It's okay.
It was a science fiction author who wrote this book. When I watched the Going Clear documentary, the first thing I thought was, how did anyone take this seriously? This guy was a failed science fiction writer, and then he wrote this book about a religion. I'm thinking, he's a science fiction. Fiction is part of this. He's a science fiction writer. And people are taking it like this is the gospel. This is what we should do. This is how we should live our lives. Is that not amazing?
And he's the only one that's ever reached
for the basis of a
level
religion? 8. Yeah. Somehow he's the only one that made it.
Hit us up with your thoughts at Outkick 360. You can type. You can chat right now with Chad in the chat
chat's
room.
on fire today. We're going back and forth.
Social media and the responses to Marcellus Wiley on fire. And so he posts a video about his kids and participation in sports with transgenders also participating. And, well, here's Marcellus Wiley.
I have no issue with transgenders. I do have an issue with athletes who are transgender trying to participate, going from a transition of a man to a woman and now playing with the women. And I will say that. Y'all can try and Dave Chappelle me all y'all want. I am very clear on this. You could be a transgender, you could be the homie. But I'll be damned if a male at birth turns into a female and tries to compete against my daughters. She ain't out there. We out. Don't make this a human rights issue. This is a biological issue. Simple as that. Trust me, I am a man. And then I'm like, why can't the dudes who transition to women actually empower women and compete against the men? Since you so damn bad, you know what I'm saying? Like if I were me, Marcellus, and then tomorrow I'm Martha, I change up my gender, I'm now a woman. You know what I would try to do? Compete against the dudes. Why? Because that's empowering. Oh, you don't want to do that? Why? Why? Hello? Anybody? Because it's easier, damn it. Flojo, what's the world record in the 100? 10.49, 10.48? What's it in the 100 for men? 9.58? A damn second almost? Man, y'all better stop playing. And why I use objective numbers? Because it's pretty easy to digest. I hate saying fair, but it's just not even right. Forget fair. It's not right.
Yeah, and what he's saying, Chad, we have echoed in previous chats about this. I'm not saying I'm against whatever they want to do, right? But I'm with you on you can't just start winning college championships because you are now participating in a completely different level of sport.
I agree with everything he said. I have no issues with any of it. To me, it's very logical and common sense to have his take on all of that. I am curious, though, now at ESPN if he faces any scrutiny, if he's forced to apologize, or if any colleague says anything. My guess is no. I think that ESPN is probably trying to go away from the forced apology game a little bit with their on-air talent because, and hear me out on this, if you go and look at the tweet that he put out or the social media post, and I did, and I looked at the first 25 replies. Of those 25 replies, 18 were negative about Marcellus Wiley. And the chief complaint, and I think the first reply, if you look at it, was something like this, that is very common. Stop spreading hate. Stop adding fuel to the hatred fire because there's not many transgender athletes trying to do this, and it's not an issue. Now, what's very important about this is the fact that no one is saying it's right for a transgender athlete that's a biological male to compete against female athletes. I cannot find a person arguing that. The argument on the other side of this is simply, it's not a big enough issue to talk about, so shut up about it. And that is the main response to this. The thought is, if Marcellus Wiley is doing this, he's empowering hatred. He's empowering, emotional abuse of transgender people everywhere by simply stating a logical fact of what's right and wrong. There's nothing he said that's controversial, and there's nothing that anyone on the other side of this will come back and say, well, here's why they should be allowed to do it. No. The response every time is, well, just shut up about it because it's not that common of a problem. But they acknowledge it's a problem. So I think that's progress. We can all acknowledge it's not fair, right? It's just some people will admit it and talk about it and others won't.
Yes.
I have yet to hear a good defense on the other side of what Marcellus Wiley is talking about in terms of transgender athletes competing against a sex they weren't born as.
Well, there's more at Outkick.com, but there's a cricket league that's allowing a male-born athlete to compete against girls as young as 12 in cricket. This is 6 first-class counties are demanding urgent answers from the England and Wales Cricket Board as to why a middle-aged player who transitioned from a man to woman is being allowed to compete against girls as young as 12. To me, this is the reason why, this is a story, is because you've got this situation where, Chad, you've got a daughter that will soon be 12 years old, believe it or not. And can you imagine you have a boy/man competing against her in whatever league it might be?
Yeah,
and that's what Marcellus Wiley's saying.
It's stupid. By the way, someone in our chat says he doesn't work for ESPN anymore.
Well, he was FS1. No,
that's news to me. They said he works for Brinks TV.
And that's why he's able to speak whatever's on his mind.
That sort of changes my opinion about it, honestly, because the first thing I thought was, I wonder if he's going to be forced to apologize. He's not apologizing now. If he's no longer at ESPN, there's no reason to apologize for anything he said. So scratch what I said about that one.
And you have Alex Morgan, who was in town with the women's national team in Nashville, saying that she throws out the idea that the U.S. women's national team should boycott playing in states that bans trans athletes.
What is?
I mean, again, like
what is? I don't bans trans athletes. Talking about from participating against the opposite sex, or just like they can't participate at all.
You can't participate in competing against the opposite sex sports. That's what she's throwing out that idea. Like if the high school association came up with a rule, or you've got a senator in a state that wants to propose a bill that would prevent this from happening, she doesn't want the women's national team playing in that state.
What confuses me about this, I hope Alex Morgan watches this show and will hear me out on this. Is there a single state that is banning a biologically born male from participating in male sports?
Well, right, no.
Every high school athlete has the right in every state. There's no law that says if Leah Thomas was a high school athlete in Texas or Florida or Tennessee or any state, Leah Thomas could participate in men's swimming. So they can participate in sports.
Yeah, I mean, Leah Thomas wasn't, the champion.
Yeah, the rules that are being made are just saying you can't cross over and participate against another sex.
Right.
Because you are transgender, decided to be another sex. That can't happen. I mean, of all the things to protest.
I know. It's, again.
I like Alex Morgan too.
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
So did you see?
I don't understand that stance at all.
Did you see?
Call me old timey here, but I just don't know that that's the hill to die on if you're Alex Morgan about where you're not going to go play.
Yeah. Did you see DK Metcalf this weekend?
I did.
So did the NFL apparently, because he was drug tested for PEDs immediately. The random aspect of having to.
Well, he shared his text, right, that he got from the NFL. I was surprised that was the method they went about. That it's like, hey, this is my such and such name from the NFL's testing office, and you've been selected for a random drug test now. I figured it'd be more official in an email or something, not just a text.
Well, during the season, he would just get a letter on his locker. At least that's how 3 years ago, I would see that. During the off season, they've got to accommodate that wherever he may be. He doesn't have to be in Seattle, during the off season, where he could just go to the practice facility and get that done. So my guess is they're just sending the text, which is, "Good morning, DK. This is Brian Keller on behalf of the NFL. You've been selected for a PES policy collection tomorrow," which is today. "Please contact me as soon as possible so that we may arrange a time and place to meet tomorrow." No coincidence whatsoever. You've been selected.
So is the video real or fake? I don't know anything anymore about what's real and what's fake. We just talked about a woman who faked her life into a $10.2 million bender and really had no money.
So I find it...
it to be fake.
I find it enhanced, okay, where there's a slow motion aspect to it where it looks like he's climbing in the air a little bit,
Well, they may have slowed it down, but now I watch this that we're showing on the screen right now, and I think maybe they just sort of slowed it at the apex of his jump,
or he's grabbing
to make
it
look like he's
with the one-handed catch,
levitating a little bit. But maybe he actually jumped that high.
But it's also after he won the NBA Celebrity All-Star Game MVP.
And I saw his dunk in the Celebrity All-Star Game, and I'm not going to lie, not that impressive. I watch it. I'm expecting the guy to dunk with his teeth the way he jumped in that video, and he barely dunked it on a breakaway. It did not look like a guy who could jump that high. It looked like something that video would have been fake, the way he dunked in the game. And I know he's a freak athlete.
Yeah. Oh, 6'4", 6'5".
I'm so confused by all that. Can we just say what's fake and what's not? If I watch a Marvel movie, I know it's all fake. I like going into something knowing that something's CGI. We got to stop with the tricks, Hutton.
But
I hate being tricked time and time again.
But I do like trying to figure out, like, what we see from him is totally... You could visualize him doing that. That unbelievable athleticism.
Yes, I just hate being made to feel like an idiot at all times because I see something, man, that's incredible. And someone's, that's clearly fake. They already said it's fake. Okay. Now, sorry. that I'm an idiot because I didn't know that the video that was made to look real was actually fake.
I mean, he wins.
And I don't know about this one. No one said for sure if it's real or fake.
I like the way he got after it in the Celebrity All-Star game. I'm looking at the stat line. This is like you getting sent to the layup line in high school that day. Metcalf finished.
That was my Leo Thomas moment.
Yeah, Chad, as punishment, was sent to the girls' layup line.
I had the ball knocked out of my hands. We had half-court practice with the boys' team. The girls were on the other half. And for the second time in the practice, I was holding the ball, waiting in our set offense.
Too loose.
And a player, hit the ball and jostled it out of my hands for a second. And I regained it, but that wasn't good enough for our coach. And said, if you're going to play that way, you're practicing with the girls the rest of practice. And I was sent to the other side, and I had to walk up to the girls' coach, who was a man, Coach Fryer. And I said, Coach Fryer looked at me and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Coach Bell told me to come practice with you guys. Can I help?" And he just looked at me and said, "Yeah, get in there on Stacy Shell." So the rest of the practice, I was guarding the post on the girls' side of the practice.
And domination.
I decided to, take my frustration out by pinning her shot up against the backboard 3 or 4 times.
Okay.
And when I didn't do that, I just swatted it to the second level of our high school gym over and over.
So that visualization.
Another example of why men shouldn't compete against women, by the way.
It's this stat line. Metcalf finished the game, the celebrity game, 20 points, 10 rebounds, 4 blocks, and hoisting the NBA All-Star
That is a workman-like
celebrity
stat
trophy.
line right there. That's a guy who's all hustle, all effort, was DK Metcalf in that celebrity All-Star game.
Hit us up with your thoughts at Outkick 360. Coming up, NFL.
I'd love to know from people, by the way, on Twitter, YouTube, wherever, if you think that video that we just showed is real or fake. The Outkick story believes it's fake. In reading the story, it has in parentheses, possibly fake.
At the very pinnacle of the catch, to me, it looks like it's enhanced just another half, like the size of his hand. He goes up a little bit too high.
I can see where they may have slowed down at the apex of the jump to make it look like he's levitating or higher than he was. But I also look at the start of it and think that may be real, right? They slowed up the top of it just a bit to make it look like he's floating for a second, but the actual jump may be real. Someone else may watch it and say, oh, it's completely fake from start to finish, and it's totally enhanced.
It's got to be enhanced some because
someone's going to respond and say, you are an idiot for this reason.
Yeah, it's got to be enhanced because otherwise he's not coming off a poor season, well, poor for him. And I mean, he would be purely dominant against some of these NFL corners. And sometimes he is, but not like that.
Well, we know the one photo of him next to A.J. Brown and all the other Ole Miss receivers. Yeah. That's real, and it's one of the more remarkable shirtless photos anyone's ever posted before.
Chiseled.
I mean, these big NFL wide receivers next to him look like children next to DK Metcalf when he was getting ready for the NFL draft.
Coming up, more NFL storylines. Can Derek Carr lead the Jets to a Super Bowl victory? Can he lead them to the promised land?
Absolutely not.
The Jets may be thinking so after this weekend's visit. Plus, Aaron Rodgers, according to Bob McGinn, whenever the time comes to make a decision, the decision won't be the Green Bay Packers because the Packers have already made their mind up on that end of the decision to be made on what's going to happen with him this offseason. Details on that and much more next on Outkick 360.
Another edition of the Trey Wallace Podcast. Happy to be joined by SEC Network analyst, ESPN. He does it all. Peter Burns joins us this afternoon. Peter, what's up, buddy?
I'd be doing a lot better if I wasn't 30 minutes late from the podcast and if I wasn't having to do it from like the meeting room at my gym because of the chaotic schedule. But again, it's just it never, when you got a 5-year-old and 3-year-old, all you got to know is that chaos is going to ensue in your life, and it has to.
It's just another day for the Burns household, man. You're all good, buddy. And look, there's been chaos not in your life. There's been chaos around the SEC in the last week or so. We've got Texas, Oklahoma. Kind of always figured they were going to reach that agreement and be able to join the conference early in 2024. But you look at it now and everything that has to happen between this week, and stuff has been going on behind the scenes, but scheduling, getting these guys ready to go for 2024 to get here. That's why I think spring meetings are going to be so big. But your takeaway of Texas and Oklahoma joining the conference a year early right when the new ESPN deal starts up.
Yeah, Trey, that was the whole deal. Like, it felt like we could really get into kind of what I considered college football 3.0. Like, college football 1.0 is what we grew up with, like old school football, just the way it is. College 2.0 or college football 2.0, I feel was like the pandemic and then the start of the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness. And I feel like college football 3.0 starts in 2024. Not only do you get Oklahoma and Texas going to the SEC, but remember, we get USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten. Then you've got the expanded college football playoffs. So it kind of felt like all of this meant like, hey, in 2024, we're going to have a brand new kind of sport, frankly, and especially postseason. So I'm fired up, and it means really a different level for the SEC. Like, now we're not going to have divisions, which sucks, by the way. I'm not a fan of that. I understand why they do it, because it should, in theory, give you, a guaranteed at least 2 teams in the college football playoff every single year. But this conference is good enough that, hey, I mean, the 3rd ranked team should always be good enough to get in as well, too. So, I mean, I would have stuck with East and West, but it helps with the scheduling a little bit more. But man, I'm fired up for it. I mean, it's but here's the deal. I'm not sure if Oklahoma and Texas are really fired up for it, because I'm not sure how good they're going to be once they enter game 1 of that 2024 season.
That's what's going to be the interesting part, because we're going to get Arch Manning, in the Southeastern Conference to start things off. Now we'll see how he is during his time in Austin, see where he's at. But it does put up that point where, okay, they might not be as settled in as maybe they think they are in 2 years when they join the conference compared to where they are right now. And Venable's trying to build his program. Sarkisian trying to keep things on track there. I know it's an advantage, Peter, to get them in the conference, but they might be joining the conference and hanging around that middle of the pack. It's not going to be just straight, okay, we're to the top.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. I mean, we just saw the difference in the top of the SEC and the top of the Big 12 in the national championship game. I mean, there's a pretty big damn difference, right? And I think that gap is only getting bigger. Now, I think that might be a little bit of an outlier because it was such a butt whooping, but still, I mean, the fact that if you're not reigning supreme in that conference, I use Texas as an example right now, and you can't beat the Texas Techs consistently. You can't beat the Baylors consistently. Well, what makes you think that you're going to be able to go into, Athens, Georgia, or Tuscaloosa or Baton Rouge and have a whole lot more success? I don't necessarily buy that.
Coming up in about an hour, Withrow and I, we rank our coaching hires of the offseason, 1 through 5. I think we'll have some varying opinions on that. Again,
probably similar with some, and then maybe a little bit different.
No Nathaniel Hackett layups, though, this go-around.
Nathaniel Hackett, thank God for that guy, letting me know 1 game in that it wasn't going to work out.
Well,
one of the few predictions that I absolutely nailed. After that first game, I said, he's done after 1 season. This will not work. And it only got worse from there.
And now he is the offensive coordinator of the New York Jets. And the Jets, they hosted Derek Carr over the weekend. Woody Johnson, going into the offseason, said, we're going to load up with a veteran. We lack the veteran presence at quarterback. That's a necessity. Very specific on that. And Woody Johnson, at times, not at times, most of the time doesn't show much patience when it comes to coaches and staff and how the Jets go year to year, game to game. They're moving on, and for good reason, moving on with other options at quarterback. But they can't just fall in love over the weekend with Derek Carr if they have the option of Aaron Rodgers. I understand.
I don't think they are. Do you? You think they're falling in love with Derek Carr, or is this just a backup plan? So, you know, we had Jordan Schultz on Friday, and he was adamant when we talked to him. He said, do not let this fool you. They are all in on trading for Aaron Rodgers. They're just making sure they have something of a veteran option if that cannot happen.
So
I still believe that. I want to believe that for the Jets.
This might be the, hey, we're going to say this now so that Derek Carr really likes us, even though we want Aaron Rodgers. Maybe that's it. But Jeff Darlington on ESPN said that the Jets really believe that the former Raiders quarterback, Derek Carr, is the type of quarterback that can lead them to a championship, and that they feel like he's a, quote, great player, and that Carr's meeting with New York was, quote, very positive and went well, end quote. That last part, I mean, I haven't heard of a visit going the opposite direction when it comes to these top free agent QBs. The organizations are going to make sure that they don't insult the guy on the way out the door, even if it goes the opposite way, right, in a bad way. Derek Carr is not a bad quarterback. And he's got records. He holds records for Raiders in Raiders quarterback history. But the premier option this offseason would be the acquisition of Aaron Rodgers. You have to wait on that. And based on what Bob McGinn is saying, and he's doing this based on his own knowledge of the organization and not a guess, but his assumption as to what's going to happen and internally with Green Bay, not with Rodgers. You know, the discussion's been, what's Rodgers want to do? Does he want to be back or not? And McGinn was asked, how do you view it from internal? What do the Packers want to do? And if they're moving on, and it sounds like they're done with him, according to McGinn, the Jets, who have reportedly already been picked up the phone like many teams have, I'm sure, they've got to make sure that they are one of the front runners to acquire him, because they have a very solid young roster that maybe it's not 2023, but they're a playoff team with Aaron Rodgers in 2023. Maybe it's not a Super Bowl roster. Don't know, because Rodgers has had Super Bowl quality rosters in Green Bay, number one seed type teams, and they lose. But Chad, this is, to me, a no-brainer. You don't sign Derek Carr now if you have the option of getting Aaron Rodgers in a week or 2 weeks or whenever.
So 2 recent conversations I've had. One with Dan Dockich this morning on Don't At Me. We were talking about the difference between Rodgers and Carr if you are a New York Jet. And if Aaron Rodgers walks into your locker room, walks into your training camp, there is a stand-up at attention type moment for Aaron Rodgers that simply does not exist for Derek Carr.
Well, but hang on.
One's a first ballot Hall of Famer. The other is very much not.
No doubt on that.
There are very few guys that have that appeal.
But what? I know the expectation is Super Bowl, okay, for both guys. Like wherever they go, Carr is the biggest name on the free agent market. But what he does for that team is he gives them not just a boost, but an edge. Like, okay, we're missing this piece. We had zero respect for Zach Wilson, clearly. He never had our back. How much of this is on the offense? No, I don't think that's true, right? The post-game comments. Carr's the exact opposite of that, where in Oakland and in Vegas, he took the brunt of everything and would be emotional about it at the podium post-game, right? Because he's like, hey, I care about this. I don't feel like it's permeating through our locker room. He would bring to a young nucleus of a roster, I think, a little boost and a kick in the pants that gets them over the hump in some of these games. He's not Aaron Rodgers, but he might be what they need structurally, because Aaron Rodgers is going to show up and play, and that's pretty much it. Carr's going to do more than that.
I don't think what the Jets need is someone that's going to be really good at taking the blame for losses, and that's Derek Carr so far. It's just a different level between him and Aaron Rodgers. So Jordan Schultz, the other conversation we had on Friday, said Derek Carr is very much a backup plan.
Mm-hmm.
They're all in on Rodgers. They should be all in on Rodgers. For this reason, young roster, talented roster. The response to Aaron Rodgers coming in and leading that team is just different. Derek Carr could be a much better teammate. Derek Carr could be a better leader. He could be more accountable. He could be there more often than Aaron Rodgers. I just still don't think it has the same impact from a stand at attention type mode for the Jets and a play mode right now between Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr. Jordan Schultz brought up a great question about this. Would you rather, I believe it was Jordan Schultz that was on with us, would you rather have Derek Carr for 4 years or Aaron Rodgers for 2 years? My response is I'd rather win a Super Bowl. And I think the odds of winning a Super Bowl are far greater with Aaron Rodgers in 2 years than Derek Carr for 4 years.
But here's the predicament the Jets are going to be in. They're at the mercy of Aaron Rodgers' timeline, right? They have to figure out the clock for them where they don't lose out on Derek Carr if he's the backup option, if their first option continue. Maybe Aaron Rodgers needs to go on another darkness retreat to figure it out.
You got to wait on Aaron Rodgers.
But if you wait and you miss out on him and Carr signs somewhere else, what do you do?
But here's my thinking on this, all right? And I hope Derek Carr proves me wrong. Derek Carr ain't winning a Super Bowl. Your goal with the Jets with this roster that's still developing, but is to win a Super Bowl. You cannot, because you fear Aaron Rodgers' timeline, commit to Derek Carr. If Aaron Rodgers who you want, you go after Aaron Rodgers on his time and hope to get him. If not, you're still in the mode of finding that franchise quarterback, whether it be in the draft or a year from now or whenever. So I would just hate it if I were the Jets and I'm a Jets fan.
Mm-hmm.
I would hate, boy, we had to make a move with Derek Carr because he was pushing up our timeline and Aaron Rodgers was on his darkness retreat and wouldn't give us an answer. So we committed to Derek Carr, but even though Aaron Rodgers was a possibility.
I'm not saying the darkness retreat is the timeline. I'm saying if it's not 4 days, but 4 weeks that you have to wait.
Wait 4 weeks.
Without a guarantee.
Wait 4 weeks. I would rather go all in for Aaron Rodgers and risk not getting Derek Carr, him signing with New Orleans or whoever, and you missing out on both, than settling right now for Derek Carr. I would wait on Aaron Rodgers, and I would do it on his timeline if that's what it took. That may sound like loser mentality to some. I think it's the opposite. I think it's you saying Aaron Rodgers can win a Super Bowl. We've seen it. We have the roster where we can compete for one now. We will take 2 years with him. We won't settle for Derek Carr for 3 or 4 years. He can go sign with New Orleans. He'll make them better. We know that. Still a good quarterback, not a great quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is a year removed from being back-to-back league MVP. He's still a great quarterback. That's what I'm doing if I'm the Jets. They may very well settle and say, we can't wait on Aaron Rodgers. Let's get the best option right now that wants to sign with us.
I don't think they settle. I don't think it's a rush, but at some point you do have to look at the calendar and figure it out. And if Bob McGinn is, and there's no reason to think he's inaccurate, but he's doing it based on his judgment of how the organization over the years has reacted to Rodgers and this cyclical annual saga. They're over him. They're done with it, with what McGinn was saying. So if that's the case, then you know you have a great shot. And Nathaniel Hackett's there for a reason, Chad. Just like Denver hired him. I mean, there's no secret that they wanted Rodgers, and it's not just a coincidence that the contract and the trade was set up with Russell Wilson with the idea that if Rodgers does something else, we'll execute this trade with Seattle. And they did it within the hour of Rodgers announcing that he was going to be back in Green Bay. But I think he clearly likes Nathaniel Hackett because he's been hired now 2 places in 2 years where Rodgers could be the quarterback.
I just think they're all in on Rodgers. I may be proven wrong on that, but I think they're willing to wait it out and go by his funky schedule and let him, waffle back and forth on whether or not he's going to play and decide when to show up because they know that Aaron Rodgers, of the options now that Brady's gone, is their best option to possibly win a Super Bowl.
Chad, Eric Bieniemy, he is now the offensive coordinator and the assistant head coach in Washington with the Commanders. all of this discussion about, no one has hired Eric Bieniemy as a head coach. I over the weekend, I'm just randomly thinking, based on the way Washington is set up, Eric Bieniemy could be the interim head coach there next year.
Yeah, if they play poorly or Sandler Rivera is done. No, I agree.
Especially if they sell the team and they're trying to set up things before.
There's no more excuses now for him not to get a head coaching job if he does well.
This is it.
Right? I said it last week.
Full
all
control.
this talk about it being a race thing, I don't buy it right now at all.
Right.
There's reasons you can say that he hasn't been hired. If he goes and wins and they play great offense with this quarterback situation, whether it be Sam Howell or whoever is a starter, he's going to get a head coaching job. I'd be shocked if he doesn't. And if he doesn't, the league should investigate, quite frankly, about what's up with Eric Bieniemy and the reason he's not getting a job. So if he can win with this group and now it's his offense, then more power to him. He's going to be a head coach somewhere, whether it be Washington or somewhere else. I fully believe that, especially with the amount of interviews he's already been on at other places, being, it's Andy Reid's offense. We all know that, but still being a part of that Andy Reid offense has given him opportunities. Succeeding now will give him even more.
Yeah, and so I think the other important factor here is Ron Rivera's done a nice job giving all of the things on the border of the Washington Commanders organization, what he was able to pull off and all the different hurdles that took place in what was a extremely difficult division. Hats off to him. I mean, I don't think he got enough credit for the job he did this past season, even though it wasn't the best team. The quarterback carousel and everything else that's gone on. He's now reached out and he's landed Eric Bieniemy where other teams wanted to talk with him. Baltimore reached out and chatted with him about offensive coordinator. The Tennessee Titans wanted to chat with him. There's been no report that they actually did, but they did request permission according to reports, along with Matt Nagy. But Bieniemy chose Washington with Ron Rivera, where he has total control and say over what he's going to be able to do. And it doesn't have to be Carson Wentz either. I get the sense it's Bieniemy's call based on the assistant head coach promotion that they're giving him to move over from Kansas City, where he's winning titles and having interviews. And as far as like why he's not been a head coach, I'm waiting to hear from Eric Bieniemy on this. All I hear from are talking heads and assumptions. I haven't heard Eric Bieniemy say anything on this.
I don't know that I've ever heard Eric Bieniemy in an interview. Now that you mentioned that, it's very rare that I've seen him at a podium or conducting
the only
an interview.
interviews we know of are the 15 around the league that he's had.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm saying actually seeing him with the media, I don't know. I'm sure he has weekly availability that I could go back and watch, but he hasn't really said anything of note, I guess is my point, about this or anything else. He gets his chance now. I mean, this is sink or swim time where he's not under Andy Reid.
They've got Robinson at back.
And we're going to find out.
Who was outright winning the job at running back prior to being shot, and then he came back and played and finished strong. Dotson and McLaurin at wide receiver. Now they got to figure out the QB.
I like that he's doing it. I like that he's taking the leap and going and running his own show now. It's sink or swim time, right or wrong. If he succeeds, everyone who interviewed him and did not hire him is going to look like a fool. And if he doesn't succeed, everyone who interviewed him and didn't hire him will look smart. Because then they'll come back and say, see, it was Andy Reid's offense all along, and it was not him. And that is now clear because he has failed in Washington. That's going to be the response from the league and people who cover it, right or wrong, based on this. If he succeeds with a lackluster quarterback situation, he should get a head coaching job. He should get that opportunity.
Yes.
And I think he will.
Yes. And if the offense is having success, but they start slow, watch out, because I think the storyline is going to be not on Ron Rivera, but is it Bieniemy that's going to be tagged as the interim if they make a move? Don't know. And they're going to sell the team before anything like that happens. But it's a very intriguing storyline, just like you would see around the league with veteran coaches that are looking for a chance to climb the ladder again. And you've got a coach that has extremely high expectations based on either the division or the owner. And we know the current owner there is crazy in Washington. Chad, the Rex Ryan, he interviewed with the Broncos this weekend, I believe on Saturday, is whenever he was chatting with Sean Payton. And the Sean Payton hire, and we'll rank ours coming up, but the Sean Payton hire, this is the difference between the clout he brings and the other coaches, the new coaches that are putting together staffs. This staff that they're throwing together in like Arizona is extremely young, kind of piecemealing it together. And you're getting Rex Ryan interviewing for the job.
Rex Ryan being sort of left to hang out to dry, it looks like, in terms of whether or not he's going to offer him the job.
But so they have combed through all of these different coordinator options, and they continue to figure out what they're going to do. But the idea that, there was a time where Rex Ryan, you just turn on the highlights of the defenses, or you just know the guy's last name, and he steps foot in the facility for the first time, and he's already the defensive coordinator, right? He's flying out to meet and chat and interview with Sean Payton. I think the veteran coaches see a successful team on the horizon because Payton is there. I think it's also important that Sean Payton, of the options, he had the option. One of the options was to just go back and continue to do Fox for another year if you don't want to coach Russell Wilson. But he chose to do that. I think that's also important to note, is even if you don't buy the fact that he didn't have as many options as he did, he chose this one instead of the guaranteed option of just going back and waiting another season, and you wait for the contract to expire in New Orleans, and then you jump back in without compensation being needed.
I marvel at the fact that what you mentioned, he interviewed for the job.
Yeah.
And we still don't know whether or not he's going to join the team.
And
so he's leaving. This would be like John Gruden at one point interviewing for a head coaching job, and the owner being so powerful that he had to sit and wait and go back to Bristol and work at ESPN until he decided whether or not he was going to be a part of it. It's the same deal. Rex Ryan, as a coordinator, carries so much clout that it's the same situation there where Sean Payton has the power and authority to let him wait on whether or not he's going to hire him. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe they've offered him, and it's Rex Ryan that's waiting to figure out what he wants to do, whether he wants to keep working in television or join the Broncos staff. I don't think so. I think this is Sean Payton making him wait, and he has the power to do that.
Well, what Sean Payton's having to decide is, does he want Vance Joseph or Rex Ryan? Both run a 3-4. And Vance Joseph, they had asked permission with Arizona, and Arizona was dragging their heels on figuring out if they were going to retain him, if he had to honor the contract, whatever. They allowed him to do it and said that, yeah, go ahead and interview. So that's the next step, is what's Vance Joseph want to do. Maybe Sean Payton's waiting on Vance Joseph is, the Eagles' job is up for grabs as well. You've got Denver, both solid defenses. And both of these spots, Chad, are coordinator positions where you get to level up, right? It's like DeMeco Ryans taking over for Robert Saleh's defense in San Francisco. You are immediately relevant again. And so Joseph with Denver or Philadelphia would crush it with that.
It's an opportunity to be relevant. It sometimes when you have these all-star coaching staff scenarios, it backfires too.
And Vance Joseph, apparently that interview lasted 8 hours between Joseph and Payton. Not as long as Irsay's.
No. Few can hold an interview as long as Jim Irsay can with Jeff Saturday, who he already knew well, but still had to interview him for 12 hours.
Coming up, we will rank our top hires 5 to 1. We'll go in reverse order, and we'll tell you which team made the best and worst decision of this offseason coaching cycle. But when we come back, a sign of, an example of how times have changed from the 80s and a news report we saw on social media this weekend for a small town out of Texas to today's new age, a new world. That's next on Outkick 360.
12 days ago, a train carrying toxic materials derailed near East Palestine, Ohio, causing a massive explosion and a toxic smoke cloud over the town. Ohio Governor DeWine insists the pollution doesn't pose a serious threat to the 5 million people affected, people that rely on the river for drinking water. But those who use private wells near the derailment should maybe drink bottled water for a while, but still no serious threat, he says. Yeah, sure, dude. I'd like to see him drink that water because something tells me he wouldn't. The people of East Palestine, who have been largely ignored, would beg to differ that this situation is contained, safe, and good to go. One of the chemicals on the train was vinyl chloride, which is highly flammable and carcinogenic, especially through inhalation. When burned, it decomposes into other toxic compounds, including hydrogen chloride. But again, don't worry, y'all. I'm sure the pets and other animals dropping dead are due to climate change or racism. Or maybe the people are just making it up, like the folks dropping dead from cardiac arrest after the experimental COVID vaccine. Who can we even trust anymore, honestly? The people in East Palestine are pissed, and they ought to be.
They don't deserve to be nuked with toxic chemicals. This is crazy. There should be so much outrage everywhere about this. It's absurd, and it stinks out here. Like, man, people just don't deserve to get nuked with toxic chemicals just because railroad companies make an error by not checking their trains to make sure they're safe. They go off, they derail, and then, oh, the only way we can get business back for our $55 billion business is for us to blow it up and just ruin a whole city of like 3,000 people. If there's something we should do like a give, send, go and get every house here of 2,000 houses, whatever it is, or for the whole city, like reverse osmosis water, so that the next generation of people don't grow legs out of their head.
Amen. This is an environmental disaster of epic proportions, but yet I have yet to see teen climate snob Greta Thunberg or Al Gore or John Kerry on the scene. Hell, where the heck is our freaking president on this, or our transportation secretary? These hacks want to ban gas stoves to save the environment, but when toxic chemicals explode, where are they? They are disingenuous and lazy at best. These people want answers, and they deserve answers. Didn't Congress just spend trillions on an infrastructure package? What an excellent use of resources, as we can see. You know, it really burns my ass, no pun intended, that we send billions and billions of dollars in resources over to Ukraine, and yet when a situation like this happens on our own soil, we barely get a peep out of our leaders, and that's a bipartisan disappointment, by the way. Prayers to the people of Ohio. You deserve better leadership than this, and at the very least, you deserve some answers and transparency. Chinese spy balloons, UFOs being shot down every other day, and now this explosion in East Palestine, Ohio. How did we get so lucky as to have this guy at the helm when it all goes down? Just blessed, I guess. Super freaking blessed.
Outkick 360 rolls on. Chad, you mentioned it was a big weekend for the Kentucky Wildcats. They got it done. They got the big win.
Both times they've run up against Tennessee, they've had a must-win scenario at that point in their season. They came through in both of them.
Nothing pretty about it, right? But, like, a win's a win for them.
Yeah,
That's
Tennessee
big.
was miserable once again, too. I mean, you know, you go you go 4 for, if you count front end of 1-on-1s, 4 for 20 from the free throw line, 0 for 8 in the second half.
So how do you view
that?
it?
That has nothing to do with Kentucky. That has everything to do with Tennessee.
They're
not
a top
hitting
team in
free
the
throws
country.
and layups.
They're a top team in the country. But how do you view it from, okay, at least they're going through this slump now and getting out of the way, or is this now the trend and it's becoming who they are?
I think so. We're every major conference team.
And I realize saying that knowing they beat Bama.
Yeah, I did a Fox News Minute on this with North Carolina, for example, right? They got to get some big wins now. They have 2 opportunities, at home against Virginia, at home against Duke for quad 1 wins. They go to Notre Dame and to Florida State. Those teams are 8-20 and 10-17. That would be disastrous. That would put them out of the tournament if they lose those. You got to win those 2 road games, and you got to probably win both home games if you're North Carolina. So everyone's down to the nitty-gritty. Tennessee is another example. They got 4 games left. They've lost 3 out of 4, and I want to say like 5 out of 7 or 4 out of 6, something like that. They have 2 away games at A&M, who's now in the top 25 for the first time all year on Tuesday, and then they go to Auburn to end the season. They need to split those away games, and they need to beat South Carolina, who's miserable, at home on Saturday, and they need to avoid disaster against them and beat Arkansas, who's pretty good, but beat them in Knoxville the following week. If they go 3-1 down the stretch, then I think they've avoided a death spiral. Hutton, if they go 2-2 or 1-3, the Tennessee Vols are officially in a death spiral going into the tournament. That's probably putting them at a 5, 6, 7 seed. If they go 3-1 and beat Auburn on the road or beat A&M on the road and just handle business at home, just one of the 2. If they sweep, they're in great shape, right? But just one of the 2, win one of those road games and take care of business at home, I think they're going to put themselves, if they don't have a terrible performance in the SEC tournament, in a good spot for a 2 or 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, and they'll be fine. So they're still fine right now because they beat Alabama, which helped, the number 1 team in the country last week. But if they can't split these away games or they lose one of the home games, they're in a tricky spot where there's not a lot of room for optimism in the tournament, and they need to get one of the 2 back at least, Phillips or Josiah Jordan-James.
That's the finish. It's going to lead people to
Kentucky,
to hit the sauce.
Kentucky's going to get in the tournament. I firmly believe that.
Yes.
That's going to be a tough out because that is a team that has drastically underperformed all year. And you look out there, it is 5-star, 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 defending Naismith Player of the Year and Oscar Tshiebwe, who we're showing right now. They're healthy. They're more versatile with Cason Wallace at the point, who's a bigger guard and a freshman. That is going to be a team that could go on a run once they get in the tournament. They may be an 8 seed or 7 seed in the tournament, but they could very easily go on a deep run.
The opposite of where Tennessee could end up, for instance.
Tennessee may be a 2 or 3 seed that could get bounced in the first or second round.
Yes.
On the opposite side. Correct.
Again, hitting the sauce because the nostalgia of this old news report from the 80s. So Cali Nostalgia is a account on social you can follow for this. But here is a news report from Texas. Chad, enjoy.
Still, any attempt to restrict drinking and driving here is viewed by some as downright undemocratic.
It's kind of getting common is when a fella can't put in a hard day's work, put in 11, 12 hours a day, and then get in your truck and at least drink 1 or 2 beers.
They're making it laws where you can't drink when you want to. You have to wear a seatbelt when you're driving, and pretty soon we're going to be communist country.
I mean, our freedoms were under attack. And we didn't even know it in the 1980s.
11, 12 hours a day, and you can't enjoy a cold beer on your drive home.
I don't think that, like for years in this country, I don't think DUIs were really a thing unless you crashed your car.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you had to steer your vehicle into danger or run it off the road.
Well, could they prove
to get
it, though?
cited for anything that was driving under the influence?
When was the breathalyzer out? I don't know.
That's a great question.
This guy hates them.
Telling you when to put that seatbelt on and can't drink and drive. Next thing you know, we're communist Russia.
We're becoming a country where a man can't work 12 hours a day and get off work and enjoy cold beer.
I don't work my ass off all day to not get in my truck and not enjoy a few beers on the drive home. I'll tell you that much.
Coming up, we
What a
enjoyed
time to be alive.
Tiger over the weekend. We'll recap his performance, and we'll also recap the coaching hires across the NFL. Chad and I will rank them. That's next.
Welcome into Outkick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
So the higher that number can be, the better you are with the committee. It's really that simple.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
He's got incredible taste in which media figures he listens to.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
Why are we going through Melania's goods? Don't make Brittany Griner out to be some type freedom fighter. Shouldn't there be a little bit of common sense? Let's roll them, big boy. What do you got?
They want to find someone to be the face of domestic terrorism, and they want it to be a right-wing Trump supporter. Don't let them entrap you into doing something dumb. But they were hyper-rational. They looked at the data, and they said it makes no sense for me to submit to this COVID shot mandate.
Get the shot or you can't go to your brother's wedding. Get the shot or you can't go to your daughter's graduation. Get the shot or else.
Just like that. Final hours here, Monday edition. Glad you're with us. Hutton and Withrow with you.
It's always the Monday show, Hutton. It's always the one. So once we clear that hurdle,
Well,
all the doubters like Matty Ice and everyone else who says we can't make it to Friday,
Yeah.
it just gets it's all downhill. Rest of the week, every time.
Coming up, we will rank our best to worst, or worst to best, I should say, NFL coaching hires this offseason, the 5 that we've seen. And we will, I think, disagree on a couple of spots, but maybe no Nathaniel Hackett declarations yet. Or maybe. Where Chad just went off the top rope after
mine
week
is just
1.
more organizational problems. When I want to label, like, Nathaniel Hackett was just terrible from the start. But there are times where situation with quarterback and organization, I hate the hire more because I feel like it's doomed to fail. And that's the case with one of mine on this list.
Tiger Woods, he's not winning, but, man, he's making others look like we're failing. 47-year-old Tiger Woods, he's limping around a golf course. Questions of whether or not he was going to be able to make the cut, and then he does because the conditions help him out. He makes the cut, finishes 1 under for the tournament, 4 under 67 on Saturday. And he's not just playing better than just the average PGA Tour professionals. Chad, he's up there with some of the top-ranked players in the world right now, the world rankings at this tournament, the Genesis Invitational. Yes, we're talking about Tiger here, but consider what he's coming back from, and this is his first outing since we saw him at the British Open, which did not look like anything compared to what we saw here this past weekend. I can't wait for Augusta, where post-round, he says yesterday, he's planning on moving forward, just participating in the 4 majors, and maybe we see some spot things based on sponsorship, but the 4 majors, he's going to try to focus on that to get his body ready. I'm here for it.
Yeah, and what is a Tiger Woods moment that we seek now? Because I found myself watching over the weekend thinking, this is a Tiger Woods moment when he was great. He was 4 under. I think he was +1. He finished Saturday at 3 under, 4 under on Saturday, at a +2 day on Sunday, and finishes at 1 under par in this tournament. But even finishing it, we talked last week, and I said if he can make it without withdrawing, physically, or making the cut, it'd be a great accomplishment. It was a remarkable accomplishment over the weekend for him to complete all 4 rounds the way he did. So now what is that Tiger moment? I don't think it's winning a major. Right. But is it in competition on Saturday? A stroke or 2 off the lead where every hole, everyone's watching what's going on at a major again? I think that's possible, right? If Phil Mickelson could win the PGA Championship when no one was expecting it, I won a lot of money off that. Thank you very much, Phil. Not as much as he's making on the Live Tour, but it'll do for my household. But maybe it's something like that, right? I mean, if it's into the weekend where he is relevant in a major, that's an enormous accomplishment.
And on Saturday, while John Rahm and others were pulling away, Tiger was relevant in not just because it's Tiger on screen, because if he's on TV, people are watching, right? We're not alone in this. But he's playing well. He's playing not just competitive, but when he's 4 under, he's playing where you can see where he gives you hope that he can win. And he's backing up what he said on Wednesday, where it's like, I wouldn't be here if mentally I'm here to win. I'm not just here to, prove to myself I can walk around a course for 4 days straight. That to me is the next big hurdle is going into a weekend, where is he on the leaderboard, and is he in contention? Maybe he doesn't win a major, but can he be in contention given the way his body's breaking down?
I'll also say this about the limp and the way his body looks while he's playing. He looked far worse in his practice round or whatever I saw before that tournament started, walking around the course. And there is some sort of magic potion that starts when he's in competition mode where that limp didn't look as bad. We talked about it when he hit it when he putted into the rough on the green, and he bounced into the rough and bounced out relatively quickly. I thought that looked better than I expected it to look based on how he was limping around before the tournament started. So I do think that there is a competition factor with him where mentally he can put away some of that pain and that limp when he gets rolling and he's actually walking the golf course. It's never going to go away. And it's only going to get worse as time goes on. But at least for now, I thought the limp looked like less of a limp as he got going during the tournament. You can still see it, but not as bad.
It's no easy task either, because he was asked about his routine now. Here he is on the post round. Quote, I pretty much lay in ice pretty much all night. It's not fun, very cold all the time, and then treatment, then getting muscles activated and go back and hop in the cold again. The ebb and flow of that, it's hard. It's hard mentally, it's hard physically. That's pre-bed, pre-sleep. Yeah. And he's waking up to try to get the muscles going again for the next day. That's the struggle. It's not walking the course as much as it is walking the course, doing that, waking up, doing it again, and getting to Sunday to where you can be in striking distance of the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, what does his day? What do his legs feel like the moment he puts his feet down off the bed?
Yeah,
every morning, and then how long of a routine is it to get it going where you can not look like you're in enormous pain just to walk down a fairway? What is that process like every day? Can't be easy.
Chad, do you think it's good or bad, or it doesn't have to be bad, that the winner of the dunk contest, Mac McClung, is someone that they had, I believe they had him, he was so popular for winning the dunk contest that at the All-Star game yesterday, they had him introduce Post Malone so that people could see him again. Like, so now he does what after winning the dunk contest? Is it good or bad that the league had that moment? It doesn't have to be bad. Like, just that it's not a player that has shoes for sale. You know, like, well, it's
like,
not a brand name. Like this isn't even Linsanity level.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like the worst players to win a dunk competition in NBA history.
Mm-hmm.
Remember Baby Jordan, Harold Miner for the Heat, the guy who looked like Jordan?
Yeah.
That did nothing. He may have played like the last half of that season, and that was it. But he could dunk. D. Brown, remember the famous D. Brown dunk with the Celtics? I think D. Brown had a little bit better of a career, but didn't really last that long or do much in the league either. I think Mac McClung is just another in a long line of guys that we'll quickly forget about that will do nothing in the NBA. I'm not sure how much of a moment this is anymore.
You know what? But, well, okay. It was a
bigger moment years ago, you know, when Dominique Wilkins and Michael Jordan were battling it out.
That's the thing. You got to have the
competition.
Yeah, you got to have the competition.
Or even the Vince Carter year where he participated and was great.
And the dunk contest, you can win this without being a great dunker. You know, Nate Robinson won it for being small. Right? He's not known for being a great dunker in his career.
Yeah.
But he won the dunk contest
because he's a little guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's run its course. The crazy
when
thing,
guys are getting call ups from the G League, right before they're put in the dunk competition, you really remove. If they have an opportunity to win the dunk competition with that going on their resume, and that being a part of their resume, you've really just undermined any legitimacy of the dunk competition. So I don't know how big of a moment it is anymore.
They clearly saw him do something in the G League and said, "Let's find a reason to put this guy in," because everyone else turns us down.
And he's white.
Yeah, well,
let's face it, that's an anomaly.
But
who was the guy I feel like was in it who won it one year? Brent Barry. Remember when Brent Barry went like way in front of the free throw line to dunk it? One year.
He tried to. And
he had like the full L.A. Clippers. I can still see it. He had the full L.A. Clippers warm up on, long sleeves and everything, and won it. I mean, part of the mystique of it is it's a white guy winning the dunk competition.
And every year,
it's the reason they have a White Men Can't Jump remix here coming up. The reboot to White Men Can't Jump.
Maybe he'll star in it now.
Is Mac McClung. He's really giving fuel to that Jack Harlow led film that will be released soon.
Can you imagine being like Mac McClung? Early to mid 20s, whatever.
I feel bad for Dr. J, by the way, having to pose for a photo with Mac McClung. What we're showing right now.
Think about the
moment.
What
a disrespect to a great. And Dr. J, he looks very friendly in this photo, but he's thinking, well, this is not a photo I'm going to be proud of years from now. This one where I'm honoring Mac McClung for winning the dunk competition.
But the idea that, like, you and I growing up in our era of the NBA, back in our day, imagining that you could win the dunk competition in the league.
Oh, it's huge.
Mac McClung, I mean, should inspire all those that no longer have trampolines to go out and buy them again.
Well, this may very well still happen, but in our era, everyone had a dunk goal they could go to. Like you lower someone's backyard goal, and then you're watching the dunk competition. I would try this or I would do this. Then you go in the yard and you try those dunks that you think you would do in the dunk
And
competition.
that kid's yard always had the mini trampoline where you could do more.
Yeah, I mean, they probably are, and I'm just not aware of it because my kids aren't of an age to do this. But are kids watching YouTube clips or social media clips of the winning dunk and trying to replicate it?
I don't know.
Or trying to do their own dunks in the backyard? Like, I know Harold Miner and D. Brown. D. Brown was like the big thing you'd all do where you just, blindfolded yourself with your arm, essentially, and dunked it as a kid. That was a big thing to attempt on a dunk goal. Are kids looking up Mac McClung footage and going and saying, I'm going to do the Mac McClung now? This is where I sound like an old man because I don't know what they're doing.
You're right. Yeah.
What's happening on the streets? Are the
but
kids
here's the
doing these
irony
things?
of it. Here's the irony of the dunk competition. If it went away, the fans would absolutely hate it if it went away on NBA All-Star Weekend. But it's not any good either. So, I mean, should the NBA just say, you know what? We're going to take a 2-year, 3-year hiatus with it. And then you wait on, or maybe you don't even give a time frame. And then you wait on the next star who's actually willing to step up for the good of that event and bring it back. Bring it back to life. Bring it back from the dead. That's what it's lacking. It's lacking just a little rivalry to it where you have the back and forth. It shouldn't be Team LeBron and Team Giannis on Sunday night. It should be LeBron against Giannis on Saturday night. That's what it should be. And that's what it was. And that's what it's missing. That's the missing secret ingredient where they're not going to do anything we haven't seen before, but it's the best in the world entertaining us on a Saturday night for the dunk competition instead of having to call up someone and act like he's a member of the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, the only way to make it a thing again is to make it not a thing now. I think you probably put it to bed for 5 to 10 years, and then people will start clamoring for it again, and then it will become a thing if you get the right group 5 years from now to come back and do a dunk competition, and then suddenly it's something that fans want to see again. You got to create demand, right, Hutton? Right now there's no demand for this. How you create demand is you eliminate product. So eliminate the product of having these events every year, and then you create demand.
Story at Outkick, White Sox pitcher Mike Clevenger, former Padre, got paid, then got hurt. Now he's with the White Sox. Reportedly, he's threatening legal action against the Chicago radio station after that station conducted an interview with his ex-girlfriend. Her name is Olivia Feinstein, and she's repeatedly accused him of domestic abuse against her and their 10-month-old daughter. And then she went on 670 The Score in Chicago and detailed this and went through those allegations. And now he's denied all this. But now he's reportedly seeking legal action against the radio station for having her on as a guest to go through that. And it's they could potentially be sending a cease and desist for defamation. That's what the lawyers are saying to the Chicago Sun-Times.
Yeah,
for having the guest on.
I think that when I see this legally, I just immediately think it's going to end up being a cease and desist, and probably the station will just take down the interview or any way for anyone to download it or see it. I don't know. But it's also, where does that extend? You are accusing someone of saying something factually incorrect about you. That's
Right.
demeaning your character. Well, is it on the radio station to not interview that person? Right? It's them saying it, not the radio station. But the radio station gave the megaphone for it. I just think it's a slippery slope. You can sue anyone. There's nothing stopping anyone from trying to sue anyone. My question would be, what happens now with this and the radio station with Clevenger?
It's a story in Chicago because he's on a 1-year contract. We're still waiting for Trevor Bauer, who's able to play, to see what's going to happen with that across Major League Baseball. They have the domestic violence policy in MLB where he doesn't even have to have files charged against him to meet the criteria to face a suspension for Major League Baseball. So, I mean, with this, that's a storyline because they're trying to figure out why are the White Sox cool to this point with playing him? Because they have the stance of, well, as we wait for the legalities to play out, we're going to play him. At least that's what the GM is saying. he's not under some 10-year deal. It's a 1-year contract. So if you're just going to pitch him while the thing plays out, well, that could be the season, and then he's not under contract anymore. And you don't bring him back, but you get him on the mound. So that, I think, in the news element of it, that's what the station's doing. That's what 670's doing. They're trying to figure out what the allegations are, the details of it, and why or why not the White Sox haven't done anything about it to this point, if it warrants that. But again, he's denied those claims.
It's when you put a very broad and vague policy in as a league, like MLB's domestic violence policy, the league can do anything they want. We saw it with Trevor Bauer, based on an allegation. That just gives them discretion to say, if it looks bad, we can do whatever we want to you, whether it's true or not. If someone accuses you of something, we can put you on the shelf for as long as we want and do so in a way that remains very vague.
Yep. Hit us up at Outkick 360. Coming up, the 5 new coaches, new teams, with new teams in the NFL. Who made the best hire? Who was the worst? And why? That's next on Outkick 360.
Another edition of the Trey Wallace podcast. Happy to be joined by SEC Network analyst, ESPN. He does it all. Peter Burns joins us this afternoon. Peter, what's up, buddy?
I'd be doing a lot better if I wasn't 30 minutes late from the podcast, and if I wasn't having to do it from like the meeting room at my gym because of the chaotic schedule. But again, it's just it never. When you got a 5-year-old and 3-year-old, all you got to know is that chaos is going to ensue in your life, and it has to.
It's just another day for the Burns household, man. You're all good, buddy. And look, there's been chaos not in your life. There's been chaos around the SEC in the last week or so. We've got Texas, Oklahoma. Kind of always figured they were going to reach that agreement and be able to join the conference early in 2024. But you look at it now and everything that has to happen between this week, and stuff has been going on behind the scenes, but scheduling, getting these guys ready to go for 2024 to get here. That's why I think spring meetings are going to be so big. But your takeaway of Texas and Oklahoma joining the conference a year early right when the new ESPN deal starts up.
Yeah, Trey, that was the whole deal. Like, it felt like we could really get into kind of what I considered college football 3.0. Like, college football 1.0 is what we grew up with. Like, old school football, just the way it is. College 2.0 or college football 2.0, I feel was like the pandemic and then the start of the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness. And I feel like college football 3.0 starts in 2024. Not only do you get Oklahoma and Texas going to the SEC, but remember, we get USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten. Then you've got the expanded college football playoffs. So it kind of felt like all of this meant like, hey, in 2024, we're going to have a brand new kind of sport, frankly, and especially postseason. So I'm fired up, and it means really a different level for the SEC. Like, now we're not going to have divisions, which sucks, by the way. I'm not a fan of that. I understand why they do it, because it should, in theory, give you, a guaranteed at least 2 teams in the college football playoff every single year. But this conference is good enough that, hey, I mean, the 3rd ranked team should always be good enough to get in as well, too. So, I mean, I would have stuck with East and West, but it helps with the scheduling a little bit more. But man, I'm fired up for it. I mean, it's but here's the deal. I'm not sure if Oklahoma and Texas are really fired up for it, because I'm not sure how good they're going to be once they enter game 1 of that 2024 season.
That's what's going to be the interesting part, because we're going to get Arch Manning, in the Southeastern Conference to start things off. Now we'll see how he is during his time in Austin, see where he's at. But it does put up that point where, okay, they might not be as settled in as maybe they think they are in 2 years when they join the conference compared to where they are right now. And Venable's trying to build his program. Sarkisian trying to keep things on track there. I know it's an advantage, Peter, to get them in the conference, but they might be joining the conference and hanging around that middle of the pack. It's not going to be just straight, okay, we're to the top.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. I mean, we just saw the difference in the top of the SEC and the top of the Big 12 in the national championship game. I mean, there's a pretty big damn difference, right? And I think that gap is only getting bigger. Now, I think that might be a little bit of an outlier because it was such a butt whooping, but still, yeah, I mean, the fact that if you're not reigning supreme in that conference, I use Texas as an example right now, and you can't beat the Texas Techs consistently. You can't beat the Baylors consistently. Well, what makes you think that you're going to be able to go into, Athens, Georgia, or Tuscaloosa, or Baton Rouge and have a whole lot more success? I don't necessarily buy that.
Sixth and Peabody, our location. Yeehaw Beer, Old Smoky Moonshine. President's Day. Place is packed.
It's a big.
I don't blame them.
They really like to celebrate President's Day around here at Sixth and Peabody.
That's right.
It's a very important holiday for them. What is it on Step Brothers where he wants Columbus Day off? Is that it? What's your Columbus Day work policy? That's a very important holiday for us. That they need it off. That's President's Day around here.
Chad, let's rank our 5 coaching hires, all the positions filled, 5 to 1, worst to first. And let's start by discussing.
Should we alternate, or are you going?
Well,
and then I'll go.
I'll go, and
You'll
then
go
you can
5 to 1.
Yeah,
then I'll go 5
5 to 1.
Perfect.
But let's start by beginning with the last hire of the cycle, and that was Jonathan Gannon of the Arizona Cardinals, new general manager there too, and Monty Ossenfort. Here is Jonathan Gannon. What was an awkward, I'd say awkward. I was talking to a coach this weekend. He goes, well, you got Michael Scott down there in Arizona in Glendale. And I thought he was talking about Michael Bidwell. I was like, he goes, no, you need to check out this video. And he sent it to me. And here is just the mesmerizing video of Jonathan Gannon.
What's up? Hey! What's up, man? How you doing? Good. 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 Shoo, 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 shoo. Shots, explosives. You can run.
Yeah, that's Jonathan. Everything you heard there is Jonathan Gannon, the new head coach.
Shots.
How about this?
Explosion. Amazing.
Yes, that is Michael Scott. The report is he turned down an offer to stay with Philly. Philly offered him more money to stay as the defensive coordinator than what Arizona offered him to become the new head coach. And he decided to do it because he wants to be a head coach and not take the extra whatever thousands, or it could be $1 million, I guess, based on whatever Philly was wanting to do to keep him around.
It really is amazing that you can be that bad as an NFL owner and never have to worry about anything.
I mean,
just be ridiculously bad at your job. You can be cheap. You can do whatever you want. They could never win another game.
You're right.
Or be relevant ever again. They could never sell a single ticket to a game. And that dude will make bank year after year by not even caring if he's good at his job or if the team is any good. That's really remarkable when you think about that, as opposed to any other business in America. That if you are a family who owns an NFL team, don't worry about doing anything right if you don't want to, because you're going to be fine. That is the Bidwell family. That's it. That's what they've done. They've made their living off of that.
And it's another coaching search where they drag their feet a bit and they end up with first-time general manager, first-time head coach, and now they're piecing a staff together that's extremely young. Not always a bad thing, But he's number 5. We're going 5-1.
By
Chad.
the way, opposed to Dan Snyder, who's really bad at being an NFL owner, but at least he tried.
Oh, he
spent money, right? I mean, at least I feel like he was trying to win. He's just bad at it.
Bidwell paid Kyler Murray, and that's why Jonathan Gannon, I have him listed at 5 ahead of some other hires. And the quote from Jonathan Gannon is why he's at number 5. On Kyler Murray, Football Morning in America, excuse me, if Kyler Murray, this is from Gannon, if Kyler Murray isn't here, I don't take this job. I think this offense will look much different. This guy does things that it completely handcuffs you on how you play defense at times. I think we can take him to another level and unleash his full skill set. We're not going to put him in the gun all the time, I'll tell you that. We'll have 2 significant offenses with his skill set, one being under center, one being in the gun. Then obviously we're going to do what's comfortable with him. The way to take pressure off the quarterback and the O-line is to put him under center at times. It's the missing piece. Putting Kyler Murray under center is the missing piece. The missing piece is knowing that you have a franchise quarterback. And coaches that reportedly didn't want the gig because Kyler Murray was there. You have the defensive coordinator in Jonathan Gannon, who is acting like Michael Scott on video, saying that the reason he took the job was for Kyler Murray. Maybe so. Kingsbury also wanted him. Kingsbury's not there in part because of Kyler Murray. Number 5, he was number 5. Number 4 on my list, Shane Steichen with the Indianapolis Colts. He's going to be calling plays. Excuse me, I got this mixed up. I got Frank Reich number 4. Frank Reich's number 4, and here's why. He is now taking over Carolina, and it's a Carolina crew without a quarterback. You don't know that they have been the veteran mentality of what they want in New York, Chad, with the Jets. They want the quarterback that's a veteran. Carolina's been trying that for 3 years. And now they've got
Can't get anyone.
No one will choose them.
No.
Frank
Baker
Reich,
Mayfield.
Frank
That's
Reich,
what they got.
What took Indy, convinced them to go with Carson Wentz was who he stood on the hill for, and we know how that ended up. He's now taking over a group that has a ton of draft capital. They've got a lot invested on defense in the draft. They have some weapons on offense, but not enough, and they don't have the QB. Frank Reich, to me, seems like the stabilizer in a weird way. It feels like a Ron Rivera-type hire, and for that, I've got him at number 4. Moving forward with the list, Shane Steichen and the Indianapolis Colts. Chad, Steichen is more fiery than Frank Reich. That's a good thing for Indianapolis's roster and their locker room. Basically running the same thing. And he's going to be paired with a young quarterback. But the issue I have with this is he's not paired up with Chris Ballard, it doesn't feel like. Ballard did a nice job and convinced Irsay somehow to not go with Jeff Saturday, where everyone knew and thought he was going to be the guy. But I look at this and think, there's a new GM on the horizon there. And that's not a good thing for Shane Steichen. I wouldn't pass it up either. The other thing, and we just don't know this, does he know what he doesn't know? Right? And maybe it's unfair to ask that question at this stage, but he's going to be calling plays there. And that's extremely difficult as a first-time head coach to call plays. And I realize that's what got him there. But there's a lot more to it than just, oh, here's the playbook, here's the offense, defense, handle your stuff. Are you challenging? Are you keeping up with what's going on? That's tough. And only a few actually succeed at that across the league. He's number 3 on my list.
Member of the all-names team, Jim Bob Cooter, named just now the offensive coordinator in Indy for Shane Steichen. That is a tough situation. I will get into my list, but I think Arizona, Indy right now are difficult spots. Everyone on this list is not in the best of spots because they're having to hire a new coach for one reason or another, but those are 2 that are going to be tricky.
Number 2, DeMeco Ryans. And with Ryans, for me, he inherited what was a really solid roster in San Francisco. Robert Saleh, whenever he took the Jets gig, D'Amico Ryans took over that roster, and they are set up in a great way for the next big jump defensively in San Fran. Steve Wilkes is going to crush it there, and he should, just like D'Amico did, just like we saw with Robert Saleh. The issue I have is he's now, I hope they're going to give him time, but he's now the fourth head coach in 4 years. He has a 6-year contract, which is great. They are taking a quarterback early. They are talent depleted, which is the opposite of what we've seen out in San Francisco. And now it comes down to he's a solid young coach who now gets the head coaching opportunity. Can he pair all of that with a solid staff? And then do they have time to get to work? That's why he's not number one. He could be. He was number one on Denver's list. They tried to go back to him, which John McClain's confirmed. They end up with the number one hire for me. And to me, it's a no-brainer with Sean Payton. Because it's just as important that Sean Payton chose Denver as Denver hired him. The staff he's going to be putting together, the veteran coaches, they want to work with someone that's been there and done that. There's a reason why you're not seeing Rex Ryan's name pop up for Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon or D'Amico Ryans. And it doesn't always have to do with a 3-4 or 4-3. The veteran coaches want to work for veteran coaches, guys they respect, guys that they know are going to respect their opinion behind the scenes and not just do it their way. And here's the big part. I think Peyton can get Russell Wilson back to what we've seen from him in Seattle. Doesn't have to be the Super Bowl winning play from him in that full season, but whatever happened last year, Peyton's not taking this job to look foolish. And he could have waited a year and chose not to. I think that speaks volumes. He's number one on my list, Jeff.
Went a little bit different than you, Hutton, on my list. We'll start with number 5. By the way, I like it. I had no issues with Sean Payton at number 1, but I'm going to mix it up a little bit. Number 5 on my list is Frank Reich of the Panthers. Here's the deal with Frank Reich. He's too comfortable with losing. And we saw that a year ago. Maybe I'm being way too overly influenced by Hard Knocks in season, Indianapolis Colts edition, from when they went to Jacksonville, a terrible Jacksonville squad, where Urban Meyer was fired during the season. And all they had to do was win in a regular season finale and go to the playoffs. And instead, they looked terrible, and he looked way too comfortable with losing in his time there. Wasn't all bad in Indy, but I am not a big fan of retread guys, especially ones who were just fired mid-season from their prior job. I think Frank Reich's a good offensive coordinator. I think he's a good offensive mind. I don't think he's a dynamic head coach. For that reason, I don't love the hire for the Panthers.
And I do think he's a good coach. I'm with you. You have to be able to manage a lot of different personalities. And I got the sense in Indy that he put a lot of players around him that had the same type of personality. Carson Wentz. Same type of demeanor you're talking about after a loss in Jacksonville, right? Like, to me, it's the same type of reaction. And while Frank Reich's not laughing and, he's not jovial leaving the field and saying, hey, have a great offseason, it didn't hit him like I thought it should in that locker room, the way they lost that must-win game to get into the postseason. I'm with you, man.
I think that, he is a good guy, a mature coach. Mm-hmm. And he comes in and there's a sort of an adult in the room presence about him. I don't think he's inspiring any great confidence in an organization, right? He's just not that guy that's going to come in and whip a losing organization into shape and really take off, where people are like, man, this guy gets it. He's exactly what we need. He's not that type of personality or guy. For that reason, I have him 5th on this list. Now, based on the video we saw of Jonathan Gannon being Michael Scott from The Office, I'm not sure he has the personality or presence to bring it either in Arizona. That's why he's number 4 on my list. It's the unknown, honestly, with Gannon that has him one spot ahead of Reich on my list. He could be terrible. He's in the worst spot of any organization on here. He's got terrible ownership. He's got a quarterback who wants to play Call of Duty more than go to the calling of his job, which is to study film and the playbook for that week. He's got a quarterback who killed Cliff Kingsbury, quite frankly, which people thought was impossible based on Cliff Kingsbury's look and his girlfriend and his Thailand visit. But he was, in fact, able to be killed, and Kyler Murray did that in Arizona. Not a great spot to be in. Don't love him making the laser sounds to players that walk up to him, all of that. But he's number 4 on my list, honestly, because no one knows enough about this guy. He's young.
Yeah.
He had a good year with Philadelphia this year and what was the best team in the NFL for the majority of the season. But it's the unknown that puts him one spot ahead of Frank Reich for me. I know too much about Frank Reich to rank him ahead of Jonathan Gannon. Number 3 on my list, Shane Steichen with the Colts. I'll be completely transparent here. That quarterback sneak they run put him 3rd on this list. That offensive quarterback sneak. I am a QB sneak guy.
Regardless of who it is.
And when I watch the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback sneak, if I am hiring a coach, I'm like, I want the dude who orchestrates that. That is a work of art on the football field. And what they do offensively with Jalen Hurts, a guy that I think is a traditional quarterback in the sense that he's a great leader, he's smart, he can throw it, is not traditional in that he's one of the strongest guys pound for pound on the team. He's a good runner. You can do some different things with him. Shane Steichen unlocked a lot of that with Jalen Hurts. So number 3 on my list, Shane Steichen. Back to the list. Number 2, Hutton, a surprise. Sean Payton. There it is, appearing for you. Sean Payton's won a Super Bowl. I get it. Sean Payton, number 2 on my list, probably doesn't make a lot of sense for people because you had to trade to get him. That's how good he was, and someone was going to do it. Whether you believe Ian Rappaport or Adam Schefter or John McClain, I believe John McClain, without a doubt, at all times. The Denver Broncos went back to DeMeco Ryans because that's how damn good that guy was in the process. They wanted DeMeco Ryans over Sean Payton. They traded for Sean Payton and made that happen after they made a last-ditch effort at DeMeco Ryans, and DeMeco Ryans did not want that job. He wanted to go to the Houston Texans. That weighs heavily with me. DeMeco Ryans feels like the perfect candidate in that we knew he was going to get a job, and he had his choice between the Texans and the Broncos. That says a lot to me. Now, can DeMeco Ryans go and get Rex Ryan and go get the staff that Sean Payton can? No, because DeMeco Ryans has never been a head coach, and he's not won a Super Bowl. So I understand Sean Payton being number 1 on probably anyone else's list. I'm just saying DeMeco Ryans feels like the perfect candidate from what we've seen from him in San Francisco. The spot he's in now with a young and growing roster, what they're going to be able to do with cap flexibility, with draft picks, everything else, they're going to go get their quarterback in this draft also. Give me DeMeco Ryans over Sean Payton, even though Payton's won the Super Bowl.
The other thing, too, that I can't stop thinking about on that whole saga, which felt like an AD going across country to find their coach, whenever they're doubling back and trying to get Jim Harbaugh, and then they go to DeMeco Ryans, then ultimately go back to Sean Payton. I just got the sense from the reports that all really started on Payton and one of the owners. The deciding fact, they couldn't come to terms. They were having some trouble with the power structure. And to me, whatever Payton was demanding was less than what DeMeco Ryans and Jim Harbaugh were demanding. And so they were trying to figure out a way to get a really good coach, a coach that they liked and loved, and not have to give up the power dynamic contractually. Again, I'm just trying to read between the lines with that. But Peyton's always mentioned in Denver. DeMeco Ryans mentioned for all these hires. I don't think they could go wrong with that. I do find it interesting, though, that they were after DeMeco Ryans, but Russell Wilson he's got to be at the forefront of that decision, right? So who was DeMeco going to bring with him to run his offense? Right? That's what you bring in Sean Payton, you've got that done. Like Russell Wilson, Sean Payton married together, there they go. contractually. We've traded 3 first rounds and 3 second rounds. If you're Denver, you're saying, in essence, for Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. With D'Amico Ryans, it would have been different, and I'm wondering what they would have had set up there.
Well, we don't know what Denver's going to be from an ownership group perspective. You know how good they're going to be in the league, but I do feel like, with the exception of Bill Belichick, the best organizations have. I think about Philly right now, right? Strong ownership with Jeffrey Lurie, strong GM with Howie Roseman, strong head coach Nick Sirianni. Those are the organizations oftentimes set up to be the best long term. Andy Reid has a lot of control, but Brett Veach does too in Kansas City. Good ownership with the Hunt family,
Yes.
good
Consistent.
GM, head coach that's over the offense. So I don't know if you're not Bill Belichick, I don't know that giving Sean Payton all the power in the world is necessarily a good thing.
Well, what they did
It might turn out great. But I would like the situation where it's good ownership, good head coach that knows their side of the ball really well, that hires a good opposing coordinator for the other side, and a really good, talented GM.
I'm going to ask in the back, can we cue up the Jonathan Gannon video again? Because this is why Denver's ownership group acted the way they did. Because D'Amico Ryans ends up in Houston. Jim Harbaugh, they flew to Ann Arbor. And Jim Harbaugh said, no, I don't want to be Denver's head coach. Sean Payton was demanding too much. Those are the 3 they wanted. What they didn't want, after firing Nathaniel Hackett, was hiring Jonathan Gannon.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing? Good. 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 Shoo, 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 shoo.
I mean, can you imagine?
Explosives.
Can you imagine today after
explosives? Is he going to narrate everything he does?
After the disaster that was Nathaniel Hackett, they announce, we've hired Jonathan Gannon. Here we go. And then that's the video that posts as he introduces himself to Russell Wilson.
I could also never trust someone with posture that good. Like, he is way too straight up when he's talking to him. It's like he's like trying to adjust his posture in a way that's like perfectly straight as an arrow as he's talking. Can't trust a man with posture that good. Look, I don't own an NFL team, but if I did, I would make decisions based on things like that.
He walks in and his back's just way too straight, you're saying, if he sits up?
If I was in the Walton Penner family and I'm one of the owners in that room and they go down, what did you think about this guy? What did you think? They'd get to Jonathan Gannon. I'd be like, I don't like his posture. Too straight up. Oh, is he slunched over though? No. Too straight up. I feel like he's trying to put on some sort of a front that it's not who he is when you have posture that straight.
We've seen a lot of overreaction to drive-through windows. There's another example of that for you. Plus, Chad, we had to throw back some nostalgia on Friday night, right? With Sandler. Another opportunity tonight, which we can recap with a band that's
you
in
have
town
the opportunity that I'm jealous of.
I'm sure a lot of our listeners, if you're around our age, if you're in the 30s, 40s, the band we're talking about, and it's not often you get a chance to see them. That's next on Outkick 360.
12 days ago, a train carrying toxic materials derailed near East Palestine, Ohio, causing a massive explosion and a toxic smoke cloud over the town. Ohio Governor DeWine insists the pollution doesn't pose a serious threat to the 5 million people affected, people that rely on the river for drinking water, but those who use private wells near the derailment should maybe drink bottled water for a while, but still no serious threat, he says. Yeah, sure, dude. I'd like to see him drink that water because something tells me he wouldn't. The people of East Palestine, who have been largely ignored, would beg to differ that this situation is contained, safe, and good to go. One of the chemicals on the train was vinyl chloride, which is highly flammable and carcinogenic, especially through inhalation. When burned, it decomposes into other toxic compounds, including hydrogen chloride. But again, don't worry, y'all. I'm sure the pets and other animals dropping dead are due to climate change or racism. Or maybe the people are just making it up, like the folks dropping dead from cardiac arrest after the experimental COVID vaccine. Who can we even trust anymore, honestly? The people in East Palestine are pissed, and they ought to be.
They don't deserve to be nuked with toxic chemicals. This is crazy. There There should be so much outrage everywhere about this. It's absurd, and it stinks out here. Like, man, people just don't deserve to get nuked with toxic chemicals just because railroad companies make an error by not checking their trains to make sure they're safe. They go off, they derail, and then, oh, the only way we can get business back for our $55 billion business is for us to blow it up and just ruin a whole city of like 3,000 people. If there's something we should do like a give, send, go, and get every house here of 2,000 houses, whatever it is, or for the whole city, like reverse osmosis water, so that the next generation of people don't grow legs out of their head.
Amen. This is an environmental disaster of epic proportions, but yet I have yet to see teen climate snob Greta Thunberg or Al Gore or John Kerry on the scene. Hell, where the heck is our freaking president on this, or our transportation secretary? These hacks want to ban gas stoves to save the environment, but when toxic chemicals explode, where are they? They are disingenuous and lazy at best. These people want answers, and they deserve answers. Didn't Congress just spend trillions on an infrastructure package? What an excellent use of resources, as we can see. You know, it really burns my ass, no pun intended, that we send billions and billions of dollars in resources over to Ukraine, and yet when a situation like this happens on our own soil, we barely get a peep out of our leaders, and that's a bipartisan disappointment, by the way. Prayers to the people of Ohio. You deserve better leadership than this, and at the very least, you deserve some answers and transparency. Chinese spy balloons, UFOs being shot down every other day, and now this explosion in East Palestine, Ohio. How did we get so lucky as to have this guy at the helm when it all goes down? Just blessed, I guess. Super freaking blessed.
Outkick 360 rolls on. Been a fun show. Thanks to our crew for making it happen. Thanks to you for joining us across the Outkick Network. Tonight, Chad, I get the chance to go see Bush at the Ryman. I'm
very jealous.
I don't think I would go like to a amphitheater show, for instance, for this. But at the Ryman, yeah. This is gonna be awesome.
I'd go wherever Bush goes.
Or
wherever Gavin Rossdale goes is where I'm going. I'm going everywhere.
But you have
could be in an amphitheater, could be in a park,
like this
could be in an arena, could be at Ryman. I'd go wherever that man goes.
Fair enough. I can't disagree with that. 16
It's
Stone
a very 90s weekend.
and Razor Blade Suitcase are the two albums back to back for me that I would play on repeat from them.
16 Stone. There's no bad songs on that one. That's the one for me. Very 90s weekend for you, Hutton. I've got to experience Adam Sandler with you. Now you're going to Bush. Is he going to be Blind Melon next? I mean, who's next on the list for you?
Who's the
out there
band?
playing?
Who's the band we saw the first time we ever attended a Super Bowl together?
Was it Gin Blossoms?
That was it. Yeah. We're like, oh yeah, they do sing this.
Yeah,
oh,
it was
they
like
sing
from
this
Hate,
song.
Jealousy, and then everything.
Yeah.
Oh, these guys really had a lot of hits. It's amazing.
We went from Gin Blossoms to DJ Khaled.
It was amazing because I don't think we knew who was playing that night at the media party.
We had no idea.
And we were like at a dude ranch in Arizona. Remember that? And it was like 38 degrees at night. And then out of nowhere, we just heard, ladies and gentlemen, Gin Blossoms. Like, whoa. At 23 years old, when you hear Gin Blossoms is playing, your life is really altered forever.
A while back.
I don't understand
Seems like yesterday.
DJ Khaled. We saw him in Arizona, and I'm thinking, what? I could do this. He just plays songs.
Well, I don't know if I can
and
produce
then talks
it.
over it.
But
has he even produced it? I didn't hear any different production.
Well, he produces a lot of all of that. But like he's collaborating. I don't need all the talking over it though. I'm with you.
But it felt like I was like listening to an actual old school rock or rap radio disc jockey doing his job live in front of people.
It's pretty much what music is
just
now.
hitting the post and then playing the next song.
That's what Rihanna did at halftime.
It was very odd.
Just hit play.
It's very odd. I don't understand it.
Hit us up on social at Outkick 360. So we've seen people get upset in drive-through lines. Maybe you've witnessed it in person. I've never seen someone get so upset that they're cussing someone out or they're getting in an argument, they're throwing stuff. I've never seen that. But there's a Florida woman who pulled a gun on a McDonald's after she did not receive the free cookie. What have we become where...
I didn't know there was a free cookie at McDonald's. I was at McDonald's over the weekend with my kids. I didn't know there was a free cookie option.
Is this the only option for Florida? You're cool because you're in Florida and you have this, the free cookie?
The free state of Florida. Everything's free.
Yeah.
You just walk up to windows or drive up to them and demand a free cookie everywhere you go. Yeah. I didn't know this was a corporate policy by McDonald's. Shocked to know this.
I mean, it's.
I was hoping we had video.
The way people react.
I heard this story, and I'm like, please say there's video from the drive-through of this happening.
Yeah, I'm sure there's surveillance video of it.
Here's my take on McDonald's from over the weekend, having eaten it now, and I don't eat it often.
I'm surprised you went.
Well, I gave the girls. We went to the park on Saturday morning, and I said, if we go to the park and you're good, we can go get lunch out somewhere. Just me and the two girls. And I said, and you can pick where you go on this side of town.
Mm-hmm.
So we're on one side of town. I'm like, we're not going to the other side of town. We're not going to Chick-fil-A. I know that's what you're going to say, but it's on the other side of town. So here are the options on this side of town. And I went through them, Taco Bell, all these different places. Got to McDonald's. McDonald's is what we want. I'm thinking, okay, we'll go to McDonald's. Went to McDonald's, got the Happy Meals, got whatever they wanted, got the Shamrock Shakes. And my experience with McDonald's this time, and I'm not a McDonald's hater at all, but it all tastes the same. Everything. I feel like my Shamrock Shake tastes the same as my double quarter pounder, tastes the same as my French fries. It all had the same exact taste to me.
Except for the Coke.
I can't understand.
Except for the special ingredient.
I don't think these are COVID symptoms either. It all tasted the same. There was no big...
This is now the third virus in as many weeks?
I'm fighting every virus off, just left and right.
Well, it's because you went to McDonald's.
I'm like an MMA fighter, but I fight viruses. That's all I do now for a living.
Yeah.
My body is constantly fighting a virus.
Patient zero for
at
all.
time. I'm also doing the immunotherapy allergy things, and I'm taking 3 of the animal allergy drops a day. Could be part of it.
The Mickey D's Coke recipe that they have, the special recipe they have, where it just an extra little kick to it. Perfect.
It's made with their fries. That's the special special ingredient.
It's
Their
made
fries, which taste just like their burger
Hope
and their
you'll
shakes.
join us tomorrow across the Outkick Network. We start at 3 o'clock Eastern. Outkick 360. Have a great evening.